He was once a notorious assassin who spread terror wherever he went. But one day he failed a mission. That failure cost him the person he loved most, leaving him in unimaginable pain. In his despair, he quietly devised a plan for brutal revenge, terrifying that even the devil himself would tremble. The film opens in Paris, where our assassin, known by the moniker the Killer of Paris, has built a reputation for perfection, never making a single mistake. After accepting a new assignment, he rents an office directly across from a hotel, an ideal spot to observe the surroundings and monitor his potential target. The killer follows a strict code of conduct, living so meticulously that he never breaks the law. He understands that even the smallest misstep could expose his identity and destroy his illustrious reputation. The killer was extremely cautious, never leaving behind fingerprints or DNA because he knew such carelessness could lead to prison. After 5 days of quietly observing his target without any actionable signs, he called his handler to inform them that he was ready to withdraw. However, the handler urged him to remain patient a little longer. Reluctantly, he agreed to stay for 2 more days. That night, as he silently prepared his weapons, he suddenly heard footsteps approaching. Instantly on alert, he readied himself to respond, only to discover it was just a courier. The messenger silently placed an envelope on the floor without a word and quickly departed. In the middle of the night, he awoke abruptly, immediately noticed a movement in the top floor room. Realizing his potential target had arrived, he swiftly readied his rifle and positioned himself in the perfect spot to take the shot. With meticulous precision, he accounted for every tiny detail: angle, wind speed, and all other factors that could influence the bullet's trajectory. Everything seemed set for a flawless execution. However, his shot missed the target and instead struck the woman accompanying them. Realizing the situation had spiraled out of control, he quickly erased all traces of his presence and fled the scene. Heading straight for the airport, he left behind an irreparable chaos in his wake. Leaving the office building in a rush, he meticulously erased any traces that could lead the police to him. As he departed Paris, the killer contacted his handler to report the mission's failure. The handler warned of potential consequences, but the killer seemed unfazed. He coldly assured them that he would resolve the issue soon. However, while surveying his surroundings, he noticed the presence of a suspicious stranger. His instincts told him this person might be a mercenary sent to eliminate him. The looming sense of danger immediately put him on high alert, ready to respond to any situation that might unfold. The killer rented a hotel room near the airport, ready to confront the uninvited guest. To ensure his safety, he set up a simple yet effective alarm system: a glass placed on the doorknob and a metal plate at the base of the door to alert him to any movement. Sitting in a chair with a knife in hand, he waited in tense silence. By midnight, however, he realized he had been mistaken. The stranger was merely an innocent traveler. The next morning, the killer left the hotel and flew to a safe house in the Dominican Republic. On arrival, he discovered cigarette butts and unfamiliar footprints, clear evidence that someone had been there before him. Sensing something was terribly wrong, he soon received word that his beloved girlfriend was in the hospital. Rushing to see her, he was met by Marcus, a relative of hers, who explained that she had been attacked by 2 strangers looking for him. Despite enduring brutal torture and abuse, she had steadfastly refused to reveal any information about him. Not only that, in a moment of courage she managed to twist around and stab one of the attackers in the leg, forcing them to flee. After speaking with his girlfriend and understanding what had happened, the killer paid the doctors to ensure she received the best possible care. Back at his house, he unearthed a hidden chest containing forged documents, cash, and weapons. The memories of the incident haunted him relentlessly, driving his resolve to hunt down and punish those who had caused his beloved so much pain. Learning that the criminals had arrived in a green taxi, he began following the lead. Before long, he uncovered a transportation company that operated green taxis and set out to track down the driver who had transported them. With patience and a cold, calculated focus, he advanced step by step on his path of vengeance, letting no detail escape his scrutiny. Under the cover of night, the killer slipped into the administrative building and uncovered the identity of the taxi driver Leo Rodriguez. After obtaining a description of Leo's appearance, the killer began tracking him, waiting for the perfect moment to act. When the opportunity arose, he approached Leo's taxi and quickly broke into the vehicle. With the cold barrel of a gun aimed at him, Leo was forced to divulge everything he knew about the man and woman he had driven the previous day. Fear was etched across Leo's face as he came face to face with the ruthless assassin who wouldn't hesitate to do whatever it took to uncover the truth. Overcome with sheer fear, the driver obediently followed every command of the armed customer, trembling as he revealed that he had picked up the 2 individuals from the airport. On hearing this, the killer wasted no time. He took down the driver and quickly fled, toward New Orleans without leaving any witnesses behind. Once there, he rented a white truck and drove to one of his hideouts. Inside, he opened a storage facility where he kept fake license plates, firearms, and ammunition, everything he needed for his next plans. The next morning, he went to a hardware store and bought a pneumatic nail gun, a trash can, and other necessary tools. Afterward, he drove to downtown and headed for Dolores's building, because the building had poor security, with only a single camera at the entrance, making it easy for him to slip in unnoticed. After waiting for the courier to arrive, the killer disguised himself as a doorman and entered the office building. When the courier stepped inside, he carefully timed the closing of the door and quickly sneaked in, waiting for the right moment. As soon as the courier left, he slipped into the office of lawyer Hajay, who was also his handler. He drew his gun and threatened the secretary working there, forcing her to obey his commands. The killer ordered Hajay and his assistant to be tied up, then began destroying Hajay's computers and tablets, leaving no trace behind. He forced the handler to reveal the identities of his clients, but the handler stubbornly refused to disclose any information. During this, he reminded the killer of his grave mistake, asserting that the consequences would be unavoidable. He believed no one could forgive such errors, and that a confession would be the only thing capable of redeeming him. Without hesitation, the killer fired a nail into the lawyer's chest, coldly demanding that he reveal the name of his client. He told Hodge that he had only a few minutes to speak, but before he could utter a word, the man silently passed away. Dolores, realizing that the killer would not allow her to survive, still tried to ask him to end it quickly and painlessly. She hoped that, at the very least, her death would ensure that her children would receive the life insurance she had arranged for them. The killer showed no hesitation, complying with the secretary's request, as she was the only one who knew the client's name and could help him identify the person responsible for harming his girlfriend. He understood that she couldn't use sleeping pills, and her life was the price he was willing to pay to achieve his goal. Once the job was done, the killer and the secretary left the office building and headed toward the woman's house, ready to continue with the carefully planned scheme. After disposing of the lawyer's body in the trash, the killer returned, only to find Dolores attempting to escape. However, her hands were tightly bound, and she couldn't break free from his control. Realizing she had no other choice, Dolores reluctantly cooperated, providing information to help him locate a client in Chicago. Once he had the necessary details, the killer wasted no time. He twisted Dolores's neck, then pushed her down the stairs, staging the scene to look like a sudden accident. The killer then carefully erased all traces and destroyed the evidence, including the lawyer's body. A few days later, he set off for Florida, determined to track down the first culprit, known as Brute. As he approached the criminal's house, the killer meticulously calculated and realized that Brute not only had guests but also kept a vicious dog, which needed to be neutralized. He quickly went to a nearby grocery store, bought ground beef and sleeping pills, preparing his plan before returning to Brute's house to continue the mission. That evening, Brute followed a group of thieves to a casino, where they decided to gamble a portion of their hard-earned money. After leaving the casino, Brute returned home alone, and the killer saw this as the perfect opportunity to act. He began by drawing the vicious dog's attention, feeding it ground beef mixed with sleeping pills, rendering it unable to pose a threat. Just a few minutes later, the killer noticed the dog had stopped barking and had fallen into a deep sleep. He quietly entered the building, knowing that Brute was in the bathroom. However, as he entered, the criminal immediately attacked, thinking the killer is a bold thief. A fierce struggle broke out instantly. After escaping the danger, the killer threw a Molotov cocktail into the house, setting the flames ablaze and burning all remaining evidence. Knowing his next target was in New York, the killer swiftly purchased a regular ticket and took a shower to remove any traces of blood. Preparing for the next leg of his journey, the killer rented an ordinary, inconspicuous car and drove to the house of the woman's specialist, who was involved in the attack on his girlfriend. He used forged documents with someone else's name and had no idea what she looked like. Waited patiently, and when the blonde woman appeared, he began to follow her, stopping at a traffic light. There, the killer prepared to strike but then changed his mind. He did some short instead. He decided to approach her and followed her to a restaurant for a face-to-face meeting. The expert felt terrified, realizing she was face-to-face with the killer, who was determined to seek revenge for the crime she had once defended. She tried to justify her actions by quoting orders she could not refuse, but the killer showed no mercy, and he would not forgive her. Though he didn't fully trust her, he agreed to have a drink with her and suggested going for a walk. The woman suddenly realized that her remaining days were numbered, and she began to cherish every moment left of her life. She hoped the killer would choose a beautiful location for her death, so at least it would carry a touch of beauty in the tragic end of her life. She tried to trick him into a trap once, but unfortunately, he struck first, shooting her dead. After discovering the identity of the person behind everything, the killer traveled to Chicago. He pinpointed the location of Mr. Claiborne, a billionaire living in a secure home. The assassin infiltrated the underground parking lot, discovering an electronic lock, preparing for another theft. He bought a duplicate keycard and registered at the billionaire's gym. The killer also equipped himself with a new gun, one that had never been used before, after transferring money into a separate account. The next morning, he received a package containing the duplicate key card and quickly set his plan into motion. The killer infiltrated the security guard's locker at the gym, swiped the key card to gain easy access. When everyone left to work out, he quietly returned to Mr. Claiborne's house, continuing the next steps in his plan. When the killer revealed the reason for attacking the billionaire, he admitted that he was not involved in what had happened. He had simply been hired to kill a rival businessman and had been paid for the job, but he was unaware of the consequences that would follow. After the sniper missed the target, the lawyer demanded more money to destroy the evidence. Realizing that the billionaire was truly not connected to the events that had happened to his girlfriend, the killer decided to let him live. He understood that the billionaire was telling the truth and was not the mastermind behind everything that had occurred. The killer threatens Claiborne that if he attempts to track him down or seek revenge, he will return to deal with him. He then leaves Chicago and returns to his safe house, erasing all evidence. In the final scene, his girlfriend is discharged from the hospital, and the couple enjoys a peaceful vacation at the beach. The film ends with a thank you to the audience for watching. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next summaries. See you next time, and have a wonderful day.